like all the rage. I did that for quite a few years at JP Morgan, and then at Salomon Brothers, which became Citigroup. And subsequent to that, worked for some smaller and some larger companies. Now I'm with a relatively small company, but what we're doing is very kind of fintech oriented, completely technology enabled. We use algorithms to construct portfolios for fixed income and equity products. And I really worked in public and private equity and fixed income, and really just about every capacity on the buy side and sell side. So I've fortunately had an interesting career. And what's been kind of one of the more interesting things about it for me is that what I'm doing now, I enjoy much more than what I've really done in most other roles. And I think that's partly because I'm using a broader base of skills, and I'm actually using a lot of skills that I think I initially started to acquire when I was at school, really, benefiting from the core liberal arts curriculum at the time. And when I look back at what I remember most about my experience academically, it was really becoming a better writer, a better critical thinker, a better communicator. And as I've started to do that a lot more in the last, really in the last several years, certainly the last 4 or 5 years, one, I enjoy it a lot. I think I'm a decent writer, and I enjoy doing that as part of what I do. And I really think that when I look at what successful business people have, had kind of as a common theme, they're great communicators. Whether they're evil or not, or they're great leaders, they still are good communicators, and they get their message across the way they want to get it across. And I think that speaks a lot to how people deal with people. It speaks a lot to how people try to empathize with people, how they try to bring a message to a person so that constituency understands it. In my current role, we are marketing to different constituencies, users of investment products. Some are more sophisticated than others. And you're constantly adjusting your language and your message. So when I think of, what really I think I benefited from as a Fordham undergrad, it was to really develop this whole, skill set, not just, quantitative or business skills. And at the time, I would say the business courses were probably somewhat more general, or certainly maybe more rudimentary. I mean, business education has advanced tremendously in the last, 30 years since I was there. But I think the core disciplines, the core curriculum that you guys have to take in the liberal arts program, and what you can continue to take advantage of, as I understand most of you are sophomores and juniors, to try to, take advantage of courses where you can continue to develop those skills. And you're going to develop your business or, core business competencies through accounting and finance and, management, marketing, those business specific courses. But you still want to, I think, try to leverage as much as possible your ability to take just, core liberal arts courses and perfect your ability, or enhance your ability, improve your ability to write, to think critically, and to communicate. Somebody has a raised hand here. Do we want to do questions throughout here, Stephen, or it's fine with me? I'm not hearing you for some reason.
I was muted. Yeah,
Okay.
if you want to pull up your PowerPoint and start asking questions, again, people can just do the hand raise, and then I'll call on you.
So Abigail Delk had a question, I think. Was that who was asking?
Yeah, I just wanted to know if there was like a course or discipline in the core that you ended up really liking and think that sort of helped you in your career in an indirect way. Since you're talking about the core that's not necessarily related to business.
Right. Well, I mean, I remember certain classes in particular. I remember once I tried to go back and figure out what classes I took in business school, and it really bothered me that I didn't remember some of the classes. But some of the classes I really do remember were like some of the logic courses in the philosophy department. I took Latin. I thought that was really interesting. I don't know if that really helped in business, but it was certainly challenging, and I like languages. I wish I had taken Spanish, although I do speak a decent amount of Spanish now, which I learned kind of on the job for a lot of work I did in Latin America. But I think in terms of like critical thinking, history, writing courses a lot of the writing we had to do in history courses, I mean, I'll never forget, I took a course as a freshman, and I'm sure this professor is long ago passed away, but he had us do like 1-page synopsis of a topic, and it really stuck with me that you could really get a tremendous amount across in 1 page. And when I was at Alliance Bernstein a few years ago, they did a great job of like communicating a lot of information, and it always had to be in 1 or 2 pages. So I think the ability to kind of, if you can find courses where they're teaching you to communicate effectively, communicate succinctly. I mean, there's so people, as you guys know, I mean, you're all, obviously social media and tech probably overload. A lot of people say a lot of stuff, and they say much more than they have to get their point across. And I think, effective communication is key. Like when we do presentation materials now, we really try to be really, you don't try to put more words on the page than people can quickly read, or else they kind of get lost in the deck and they don't listen to what you're saying. So the whole theme is around effective communication, simple points. And I think if you can take courses that help you develop that, it's worth doing. Okay. All right, so I'm going to share this document here. Let's see if I can do this. And then I'm going to expand it so we can see it. All right, so let's go back to the top here. All right, so I wanted to start with a couple of questions, just maybe get an impression from some of you guys as to what makes a good leader, or what experiences shape leadership. I mean, we all have, again, in today's world, people love and hate Donald Trump. He's the leader of the country. People love and hate Nancy Pelosi. She's the leader of the Democratic Party. They, we have all sorts of political leaders, business leaders. They have tremendous, pulpits from which to speak. But when you guys see all of this stuff, what do you think, makes a good leader? Are they, is it something people are born with? Are they, are some leaders more, proactive or reactive? Or some leaders like really just punishing, brutal despots? And are there people who empower people to, perform and help them perform better? So just when you guys think of leadership, who do you think of, or who do you find impressive, and why? Nobody's raising their hand.
Guy.
We have to call on people.
Guy.
Okay, Jeffrey Acosta raised hand. Okay, so can you? Oh, there he is. Hey.
I'm Guy. So I believe that, like, to be a good leader, I believe that there are definitely people that are born with it, that want to be a leader, but there's definitely exceptions for people who want to like evolve into a leader. I believe that like a good leader is someone that you can like look up to, like that teaches others how to like handle certain situations, and a leader that can like mediate certain situations when like other people couldn't, like when it's too difficult for them.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's good. Good observation. I think that's true. I think people, a lot of people want to be led, and the people who, want to be led respond to people who, embrace them or embrace their cause, or, are empowering, or, help them to feel like they're part of a movement. And you look at Bernie Sanders and what he was able to achieve in theory with younger population, although he really didn't generate the voting, additional voting that he thought he was going to, but nonetheless, he was a movement, and he did empower and inspire people. So yeah, that's a good point.
Stephanie, did you have something to add?
Hi, my name is Stephanie. Excuse me. I was going to say a good leader is somebody that you could confide in, and somebody that's a good example, because I have several bosses, and I feel like they're all like kind, they're all like approachable. Like I feel like you have to be, just approachable to people, so people could like understand what you're trying to say, or so like you could lead a certain way. Like it's okay if you're like harsh, but people won't really want to like follow you. I feel like a good leader is an example and somebody that you can like build a friendship with.
Okay. I think that's true. I think, I mean, definitely, there's no question that approachable leaders, I think, instill a lot more loyalty, and they instill confidence in the people who work for them. I mean, I've seen people who are just, the exact opposite, and they wind up not, really gaining the trust of their employees or their staff. I think you can be firm, but you can also be, you want to be very approachable and open to ideas and open to people's concerns. And I think that's a good point. Anybody else have any thoughts?
Alex?
Hi, my name's Alex. I just wanted to say that I think leaders should be a pretty good balance between proactive and reactive, because I feel like leaders need to be I feel like they have to openly tell people or react to when try and help other people if someone's doing something wrong, or try and assist others when they're messing up, but also can't be too reactive to the point where that person doesn't even want to do their job anymore.
Okay, I think that's true. I mean, again, I've worked for people who I think are, have that balance, right? I work for other people who are totally reactive, and it's really frustrating because they can typically respond to the latest piece of information they get, and that's kind of drives their decision making. So I think you're right. I think leaders are, in theory, by definition, they're supposed to be proactive, right? They're leading. Some people get into leadership positions who, that was a kind of a classic problem on Wall Street, which is why I think the financial crisis in '08 was as bad as it was. You had a lot of firms that had leaders who really weren't trained to lead. I mean, you look at, I don't know why I can't think of his first name. What's Gorman at Morgan Stanley? Everybody remember what his first name is? Anyway, the CEO of Morgan Stanley, his last name is Gorman. Someone will tell me his first name soon. He's a management consultant. He was a McKinsey guy, and he runs that organization because he's a great manager. I worked at Citigroup at the time, and I think, the problems that Citi and some other firms had was that they had people who were good line professionals, but they weren't good managers. They really never managed organizations or teams. And I think so, I didn't put this up here, but I probably should in some capacities. I've said this, that good management is really underrated sometimes. I mean, you can just see it. I mean, I hope you guys, one of the points I didn't put on here, but I should make is, I hope you guys read the financial press regularly or business press regularly. You really get, just day to day, reading New York Times, Financial Times, Wall Street Journal, or The Economist, or, Barron's or Forbes, any of these publications, you get a real flavor for who's successful as a manager and why they, a leader, and why they do well. And you see a lot of groups that fail horribly, and you can see that too. And a lot of it has to do with ego and, people who are kind of reveling in the position as opposed to really doing the work and getting their hands dirty. So I think, I think that those are all, that is a good point, that we really need that balance.
I think it was James Gorman. James, I think is his first name.
James Gorman, thanks. Sorry about that. Yeah.
But we also have Elizabeth. You can unmic and ask a question.
Yeah, hi, my name is Elizabeth. I think one of kind of the strongest points to being a good leader is learning how to be an active listener, and, to be willing to learn alongside the people you lead. I think about, I'm sure a lot of my classmates can attest to this. A lot of, some of our older professors aren't as likely to kind of, I don't want to say get with the times, but learn new learning techniques and, new forms of technology and stuff like that. But then I look to people like my dad, for example, who runs his own company, and I see how prosperous, just kind of keeping up with the times and learning not only the same material as the people you're leading, but, different perspectives and stuff like that can be really valuable in, leading any kind of group of people.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good point. It's definitely a really good point. I think that, yeah, I mean, the ability to be open-minded, to be open to different ideas, those are all, I mean, that's a really good point. All the points you made are good. I think that when you think of, yeah, like you said, like older people in terms of being willing to listen or open to ideas, I think active listening is so underrated. People do not listen. And I mean, that's one of the things I've been working on the last few years. I was actually at a presentation I went to at Fordham on fundraising, not less than only several months ago, where they talked about active listening. And if you just let people talk, it's amazing what they'll tell you, as opposed to cutting them off and telling them what you think before they can even get their thought out. And that is such a prevalent thing. I don't know if it's more prevalent now than it used to be. I'm sure it was always the case, but you know, as you get older, you kind of, your perspective is such that you always think things used to be easier or better. And I don't know if that's necessarily true, but that active listening is a really, really good point. That if you really just make a point of, in any role you're in, as an underling or as a senior person, listening, letting people get their thoughts out, and then responding, and, you know, even if you have to think about it and come back to them, whatever it is, but not, you know, trying to one-up them in terms of what you think, or have an experience that's better than theirs if they're trying to make a certain point. I mean, it's just something that a flaw people really easily fall into, because they want to empathize, or they want to, you know, engage and try to share their experience, as opposed to just listening to what the person has to say. So I think that's a really good point you brought up. So, all right, let's go to the next slide here so we can keep moving. So we talked about this earlier. I actually already kind of talked about this. You know, in terms of this core liberal arts curriculum and the courses you guys can take. And I'm not trying to say don't take business school courses. That's obviously why you're there. I think there's been a huge, and the one point I would like to make, there's been this just huge trend to parents, and I think to a certain extent students, feeling like they've got to go get an education, something that can get them a job, right? And when I was at Fordham as an undergrad, I mean, the business school was viewed as like the second-class citizen, you know, in terms of the student body relative to the Fordham College students at the time. I don't know if you guys realize that, but it was like, they used to call CBA the Coloring Book Academy. It was really a vicious kind of looking down upon the business school students. And now, when you look at what's gone on in higher education, and, you know, students' interest obviously in getting jobs and making money to, you know, justify the ridiculous cost of a college education, it has really flipped now to where parents and students want like practical, outcome-based, you know, education. They want people to be able to go and get a job because they have accounting skills or finance skills or programming skills, and I just really think that, you know, you can do that and do your core business courses and take some advanced business courses, but again, you should take full advantage of the ability to go take, you know, as many of these liberal arts courses to build those other core skills to make you, you know, more of a global citizen, if you will, to, you know, just help give you perspective, help give you, you know, these critical thinking skills that I'm sure, you know, are developed in business school courses as well, or in the business courses as well. But I just think, you know, just from a selfish perspective, you're not really going to have an opportunity to do that again anyway. I mean, if you go off to get a graduate degree, all the courses are in those graduate disciplines. You're going to get, I mean, I have my MBA from the University of Chicago, and it was a great experience. And I you know, thoroughly encourage people to go to, you know, top business schools if that's what they want to do. But it's all business school courses. There's no liberal arts courses involved. So I really, you know, say again, take advantage of that. Make the most of the opportunity, and try to find courses that you find interesting and that you think will help you build those skills. Writing is becoming such a lost art among so many people, and I think it's, you know, I mean, I'll sound like an old man here. It's a function of texting and, you know, just Twitter and all this stuff that requires short bursts of, you know, expression as opposed to really writing. And as I said, we write a lot of materials for our marketing materials, and I mean, somewhat coincidentally, my business partner is a fellow business school alum from the University of Chicago from 30 years ago. And he's actually a pretty good writer too. So we complement each other and can edit each other's work, and we produce pretty good copy, we think. But it's really important as a smaller company to be able to look professional and sound professional, and we clearly have the knowledge base and experience to do that, but to be able to put it into words is critical. So I think, you know, you can really distinguish yourself as you start your career by being able to express yourself clearly. And that also includes being able to do it in public speaking roles. I think if you guys can get some practice in courses, you know, business school or on the liberal arts side, where you can get public speaking experience, is a tremendous skill to have. And it just takes time to, you know, I think some people, I guess, are natural at it, but I think most people are nervous. I mean, even people who do it regularly, I think, get nervous. And I think it's just a great skill set to build in terms of how to pace yourself, how to present the right materials when you're speaking to a deck, how to, really, again, how to communicate effectively. And I think that's a great skill set to try to build. And you can distinguish yourself against your peers by being able to do that. So next, networking. This maybe I'm going to be a broken record on this, but based on what I see among students and among my own kids who are somewhat older than you guys, but, you know, not that much older, networking makes all the difference in the world. And I think, you know, you can kind of think of it as in three levels. I mean, just like internships or summer jobs that you get that are career oriented. Clearly, you know, you're doing that because you're trying to, you know, learn something, build your resume, meet people in the profession you want to work in. But I wouldn't underestimate or underrate part-time work experience, because, you know, working in smaller businesses, companies, just to make money to pay the bills, pay your tuition, you know, even if you do that as an addition to another job you have, I mean, you meet people in circumstances that you never expect. One thing I think it took me a longer time to learn is that, you know, I mean, networking, it takes work. It doesn't just happen. You have to work at it, and if you're doing it all the time, you'd be amazed who you meet in different circumstances. I mean, a lot of the contacts I've made over the last 10 years, I'd say, when I've been doing things that are more, you know, broad-based as opposed to kind of more line function duties that I had when I was trading or managing specific portfolio assets. But in the broader roles I've had, I take full advantage of whatever social media I can use. You know, on LinkedIn all the time. And I really try to work that. It takes work, but you meet people through your internships. You'll meet people, you know, I mean, just an extreme case, parking cars at a country club. You'd be amazed who you meet. So I think you develop a lot of problem-solving skills when you work in some, you know, smaller companies, more traditional part-time roles, or smaller companies in general, because you're asked to do more. You're asked to really get your hands dirty. And I think that is very underrated in today's day and age, when everybody wants to have an internship at the premier firm. That doesn't mean you're necessarily going to learn as much or have as good an experience or build skills as much as if you do it in maybe a smaller firm where you have you know, more exposure to what's going on and just a broader experience. And then, I mean, obviously you can take advantage of everything the school has to offer in terms of events. I mean, you're in New York City. Well, hopefully you'll all be back in New York City in the not too distant future. And I mean, there's just so many Fordham alums. I hope you guys take advantage of it. I know that, you know, the ability is there just through LinkedIn to contact Fordham alums, and it is a rare occurrence that an alum will not meet with a student. I've rarely seen it happen. I mean, I'm sure there's some real jerks out there who won't, but I think it's a very, very rare thing. So if you're doing all these things, great. If you're not, you're really selling yourself short in terms of taking advantage of this as a student, because people, you know, have a soft spot in their career hearts for students. I think people typically want to help people. Going back to Elizabeth's comment before, if you go into these meetings, let the people talk, let them tell you about themselves. People love to tell you what they do. They love to tell you what their experiences are. And I think they want to help, and they typically want to impart some wisdom or knowledge that they've gained. So I think that is something you really, you know, you should make a schedule where you say, I'm going to go see one person a week, and you're in New York City. So you're going to find people in your career, in your field that you want to, you know, pursue, or fields you want to pursue. And it's not as hard to do. You just got to make the effort to do it. And I think it bears tremendous fruit. I think Dennis Brandt had this study. I don't know where he got it from. It was from another school. They said and he may have told you this already, so I apologize if this is redundant, but that you have to basically have 125 meetings before you get a job. That could be phone, informational, interviews, but on average, it's over 100 meetings to get that job. So the sooner you start, the sooner you'll have the job. And as juniors and seniors, that's when you're really supposed to be doing that. So don't delay. That's my advice there. We have some more questions. We can try to do a few more questions. And I've kind of given you some thoughts around this already, I think. But what do you guys think employers want to see? Like what would you anticipate employers wanting to see in someone who kind of, in their mind, would stand out as a potential, kind of person who they would see on a faster track, or who could be a emerging leader in their organization? There's no right or wrong answer here, so just conversation. Okay, Elizabeth got an answer or thought.
Yeah, so I think just as important as it is to be, like the leader, the number one figure of whoever you're leading, I think something a lot of employers want to see is, your ability to work as a team and to collaborate, and not to, be that person who wants to always, go against the grain. And, while that's important sometimes, there's also a lot of value to, being a team player and wanting, the best for the overall greater good, instead of, just making yourself look good, or, you standing.
Yep, I think that's a good point. Yeah, I mean, people clearly, so much of what's done, well, in all companies, it's a team effort, right? I mean, I remember when working at Solomon Brothers, it stuck with me ever since. I never, in any organization I've ever been in, I never say I, like I want to do that, like in memos in emails to people, or in communication with people, or even on the phone. It's always we, because you represent the firm you work with. Unless you're a sole proprietor, it's we. And I think that thinking, consistently thinking about the organization, and like to your point, you're not going to do it if someone's breaking the law, or if you really see there's ways to kind of express your, disagreement and make it part of the collaborative process. But in general, yes, it's a team effort. So, you got to, get along to go along. So that's a good point. Anybody else?
I think Guy raised it, and Jeffney as well. So you can Guy and then Jeffney.
Okay. So skills that like employers would probably look for in students is probably the ability to exhibit like growth throughout their experiences. They want to see like the individual like overcoming certain obstacles that they've faced throughout the experiences that they've been in, and like being able to like handle those situations and knowing what to do without getting too stressed or like getting too confused. And also that like follows into adapting to like being able to adapt into like new situations, or situations that like blindside you.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point. One of the things in a small company, I read something probably 12 years ago in the Financial Times, and it stuck with me, that, small companies need to do three things well. They need to manage their capital, because they don't have typically significant revenue as a small company. They need to have policies and procedures in place so that they can, be consistent in their operations and show a professional, functionality that a larger company typically would have, but a small company might not. And then the third and most important thing is you need people who can grow with the organization. You don't want people who are not going to be able to grow into larger positions. So I think same idea, what you're saying, or inconsistent with what you're saying, is that, yeah, employers want to see people who can grow, take on more responsibility, not afraid to take on more responsibility, and be open to different roles. I think it took me a long time, in these old line trading and sales jobs, people kind of were very territorial. They controlled the products they managed. They controlled the distribution system they had. And a lot of people didn't think outside the box and think more broadly about the broader business. It was really, and I think that cost firms. I mean, you looked at a firm like Goldman Sachs, which did much better during the financial crisis, because they worked much better as a firm, I think, than a lot of other firms that were their peers, but really not as nearly as well run. So I think it's a good point you make, Guy, that you really do want to be, someone who they see as can grow and develop into something more. Anybody else? All right, let's keep moving. We got 4 other questions we can try to.
There's
try to do
Jeffany.
quick. So,
Jeffany did
I'm
have,
sorry. Go ahead, Jeff.
and Shannon as
Go ahead,
well.
sorry.
So
Go ahead.
I actually didn't raise my hand, but it's okay. I wanted to participate anyways. I was gonna say a leader, somebody who's not afraid to fail and bring new ideas to the table. Like if you guys are hosting events or trying to have a community event or anything for the office, or like in Fordham, we throw a lot of Fordham events. You can't be afraid to fail. Like you just have to try it out and then talk from experience. Like you can't say, oh, this might not work, or this is better and we should stay with the same thing because we know it works. Like it's okay to branch out and bring new ideas, to show creativity and show that you're active and you want to engage people in different ways.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. Yeah, because you can't. I mean, you have to be willing to fail, right? Because if you're not, then you're really not trying hard enough, right? Nobody's going to get everything right all the time. So clearly, there's going to be things that don't work, and I've seen that even in this small company we're running now, where we have some people who are willing to get on the phone and hawk what we're doing, and other guys are waiting for the perfect pitch to make because they don't want to fail, and those people are not going to make a lot of progress. So I think that's a good point.
and then
All
Shannon
right.
had a comment.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry, that's fine.
Yeah, just to reiterate what the previous 2 students said, I think employers are looking for someone who's coachable, someone who can make mistakes, but also who can receive information, process it, but then also apply it, and just overall someone who they can train and really look for someone to improve.
I think you're right. I think that kind of goes back to my core kind of skill set, right? I don't think you need to go to a 4-year university to learn how to use a Bloomberg or learn how to, do kind of tasks. They're going to teach you all this stuff on the job, whatever the career path you're going down, finance or otherwise. And you just want to, you want to be, like you said, you want to be coachable, teachable, which means you've proven through your academic efforts that, you can take direction and produce. So that's a good point. Okay, so we talked about what core skills can be developed or enhanced. I'm thinking more like, on the job. Are there any specific roles you guys could think of where you can, or tasks that you've done in internships where you really think, hey, I've gotten better at it because I did it, and I realized that it was something that I maybe hadn't done, but it's a skill that I'm now improving because I had an experience that helped me to develop it. Think of any internship experiences or any job experiences? Abigail?
Yeah. I have an internship right now for a nonprofit consulting firm, and a lot of it is running their social media. And I wasn't and it's honestly a lot of graphic design, which isn't really something I have any experience in, but my boss just kind of trusted me to try it out. And I definitely think I've gotten way better at it. And like the posts that I'm posting now look just so much different and so much better than the posts I was doing in January. And like my boss has said that she like really appreciates it. So I think that really worked. And it just came from practice, I think.
Yeah, because going back to what was said before, not being afraid to fail. And if you don't know, you ask a question, and that we always used to, that was like our standard response, like when you were in these bond trading environments, when people would be talking to fairly sophisticated clients about financial products, and you were never afraid to get a question you didn't know the answer to. You just always said, I don't know, but I'll find out, and you went and found out the answer. So no one holds that against people. Not just because you can't do something when you start doesn't mean people don't want to give you the opportunity to try and to develop the skills that are necessary. That's the whole point of why you guys get hired when you come out of school, because they want to train you to do things and they know you can't do them. And this idea that you come out of school ready to do every function that's out there, I think is absurd. And I've kind of heard that from a number of people in terms of when they interview for certain jobs, some of the employers want more skills, specific skills when people come right out of school. I just think it's a really kind of unrealistic expectation on the part of employers. I think as long as you're trainable, coachable, and willing to fail, you can you'll be fine. You'll figure it out. You'll get it done. Should I keep it? What do we got? What? How much more time do we have here while I'm trying to pace this?
There's about 20 minutes left.
Okay. Right. So, anybody else have any other thoughts on experiences they've had that have helped? We'll move to the next. Oh, we'll move to the next question. That was an easy out to move to the next question. So, what any courses you guys are taking that you think lend themselves to this? I mean, are there a lot of certain experiential courses you can take, or certain courses you want to take that you think are going to help with these skills that we talked about? You know, the ability to try things you don't know, or you know, grow into a role, be a team player. I assume there are courses you can take where you're doing group projects and things like that. Oh, we got Valeria and someone else.
Hi. So
Hello.
right now I'm taking a course about Jesuit education and rhetorical arts, which is a lot of focus on public speaking and these critical thinking and problem solving type skills that are heavily desired by employers. But in addition to that, I'm a psychology major, and I'm also taking industrial organizational psychology because I'm interested in that type of thing. And that talks a lot about, well, it's obviously about the workplace, and it talks a lot about what people need and how you can develop it in the workplace. So it's kind of applicable that way.
Sounds like a really, really good course. Really a lot of good practical skills. Maybe someone else will want to take it. Should share the course number with everybody.
Katie also has her hand up.
Okay.
Hi, yes. So the course I'm in is our core composition course. It's like our English writing course. And my teacher has us writing papers that are 1 to 2 pages long. And then we comment on the papers. And then we always have the opportunity to rewrite it. And I just think that I've never been in a class where we've really gotten the opportunity to correct our own work and resubmit it and learn what we're doing wrong, because it's more focused on growing within the paper and within our writing rather than your first draft, this is the grade. So I think just my core composition class was so meaningful.
Good, that's great. It was like my one-page class, my one-page history class. I was very proud of myself. You put my paper got put on display as the best example. So it was a very proud moment as a freshman. One of the memories that stuck with me. What's that? Michael Fahey had a question. Is that did I see that name up?
It's
Michaela, yeah.
Or a comment, I should say.
Yeah, I actually am in the same class as Katie, the composition class.
Oh, Michaela, sorry. No offense.
Okay. So I was just going to talk about how much I feel I benefited from that class as well, even though it seems like a pretty basic class. Our professor gives us a lot of opportunity to critique each other in a way that's helpful for our growth. So having that safe space to improve our writing is really helpful.
That's great. Yeah. So, I mean, you can see for both of you, and I'm sure for others who've taken it, maybe you guys all have to take that class, I assume. It's just a basic core competency that you can carry through in just about everything you do. All the communication you're going to do later, that sounds like it's something that's going to stick with you. And those are core skills that you can bring to any role, any function that you really have. Anybody else? So I guess, this is obviously, maybe this should have been at the top of the list, but how does Jesuit education support this development? I think of, just Jesuits as being, maybe the most worldly, if you will, of the different orders of priests, and the most academically oriented, the most inquisitive in terms of understanding and desire for knowledge, and educators, obviously. So I think everything that, Fordham does and all the Jesuit schools do really speaks to that thirst for knowledge and truth. I'm not going to get on like a political soapbox. There's a lot of discussion about truth and what's true and, fake news and what's not fake. And so I think, one of the reasons I think current Pope apparently rubs the wrong way is because he speaks the truth. And they don't like that all the time when it's shown to be, when they're showing certain people to be hypocritical. So I think, the core Jesuit, inquisitiveness and, intolerance for, kind of BS is something that really, can make you an excellent leader, because you're, as a leader, you want to search for the truth, you want to act on the truth, you want to hear the truth, and you want to be inquisitive, you want to have the knowledge to make the right decisions. So that's how I view kind of core Jesuit values, in viewing, that overall, skill set. Anybody agree, disagree, similar thoughts, experiences?
Fran?
Yes, more broadly, what do you guys think, Joe? Okay, we've got two questions, two hands, sorry.
So I think a lot of what you said kind of resonates with me. So not only do I work at Fordham now, but I'm also an alum. So I went through Jesuit education myself. And kind of what you were saying about the Jesuits being very academically focused. I think they really place emphasis on learning for the sake of learning versus learning for the end of getting a job or for learning XYZ skill. I think goes back to kind of the liberal arts education versus maybe more practical STEM or business oriented education, where it's focused on skills like critical thinking and problem solving and reading and writing, those types of ancient skills that are really hard to teach, but once you have those, they can be translated into any job in any industry. And as you said earlier in the presentation, good leaders are also really great communicators. And again, it's something really hard to teach, but if you grasp that through Jesuit education, it's really easy to then teach people kind of the practical on the job skills of here's how to use XYZ system or XYZ platform or whatever the latest technology might be. If you're good at, reading, understanding, problem solving, writing, all of those types of things that the Jesuits really focus on. I think those things can translate into any field, which I think has been helpful for in something different that I noticed from my education versus my friends who went to either state schools or other colleges where it wasn't necessarily Jesuit or religiously affiliated, that like character formation and focus on the liberal arts skills is something that I feel is unique to Fordham and the other Jesuit institutions.
Great, well said, thanks. Couldn't have said it better myself, so. One more comment.
Yeah, NRS Wireless. I'm sorry, I don't know who that is, but.
Who are you? Your code name. Or they're not going to speak now.
Okay, sorry, that's me. I had to
there you go.
I had an issue with my laptop, so I had to switch over to my phone. But I just wanted to say that I think the idea of cura personalis, going to a Jesuit university, is something that's really beneficial and formative. Even as we said before, I hear from my friends who go to state schools or whatever, a school that's not Jesuit, and I feel like there isn't as much of an emphasis on building the whole person and sort of having exposure to the core and the emphasis on building the whole person. So I think that's something that's specifically beneficial with the Jesuit education.
Okay, great. Yeah, and I think I guess I didn't realize many of you guys were Fordham College students as you are. I thought it was more business school students, which is why I was making those comments on business school versus the liberal arts core, but that was my experience because I could have taken a lot of other business school courses. And it was funny at the time, I think the business school students didn't, for some stupid reason, didn't see the value in the liberal arts courses, even though the students in Fordham College were looking down on the business school students at the time. So it was kind of comical that the business school students didn't get that joke. But yeah, I think that, I mean, the core Cura Personalis, core liberal arts curriculum is a huge plus to attending, you know, I guess, I don't know if that's the case for all Jesuit schools, I assume it is, but certainly versus a lot of other schools. I mean, I have friends who've gone to MIT, and I mean, where they're pure STEM, that's all they do, it's all engineering, and they're really smart guys, and they're really talented guys, and I'm not saying they don't, you know, they can't write. In fact, my business partner went to Caltech. It doesn't get more quantitative than that. He's a really good writer. So, you know, he's got good skills, but you know, the ability to kind of further develop and nurture those, and I think that's what'll make you guys successful. Not, you know, whether you have, you know, more practical type, you know, job type skills coming out of school. But you got to network because you got to find a job. So just a couple more things here. I know some traits. I just threw this in. Steve and I talked about this. Just some kind of quotes some of my favorite quotes that I kind of live by. This idea of no wishing, hoping, or praying. We used to say that on the trading floor a lot because people would take risk positions and they would kind of do it hoping something would happen. And that's just, hope is not a strategy. The other way to say it is hope is not a strategy. Don't just do things because you hope that, or don't have a view or position yourself because you hope something is going to happen. You really have to, strategy is like proactive, decisive, you know why you're making a decision and you're sticking with it or not. But the other one I like is the friend of mine used to say when we were working on Wall Street, the work is all inside and there's no heavy lifting. I like that because it really speaks to, you know, you got to, you know, I mean, some people want to do manual type jobs. It's great. I think that, you know, there's a lot of manual things I like to do in terms of hobbies and whatnot, but there's nothing wrong with those jobs. But as people who are going into maybe more professional careers, it's nice to have the luxury of being able to, you know, do that kind of work and not be, you know, physically challenged. I mean, even now with all of us working remotely, I mean, clearly the people who are suffering, the people who can't work remotely, right? The people who can work remotely are still generally collecting salaries and getting their work done. So it's a huge benefit. And then my last one, you know, when people say they're going to help you do something and then they really don't help you do something, I just always like to, you know, in business, you meet a lot of people who talk a big game and they really at the end of the day, really don't deliver a lot. So a friend of mine said this to me once, it's like the dog said to the homeless guy, I really appreciate everything you're doing for me, but I can do this on my own. And, you know, it's really true that, you know, if you're going to help somebody, help somebody. Don't just act the role. And I think there's a lot I've learned over the last several years. There's a lot to be said for, you know, helping people who you network with, doing people favors. It comes back to help you, you know, and sometimes it takes some effort. You know, people are looking to network, find somebody at a company you worked at, make an introduction. I always stop to do it, and it has typically always paid off. So I recommend doing that. And then I really like this last one in terms of just how you treat people. I don't know if you guys know who Ken Langone is. Ken Langone was one of the initial investors in the Home Depot. He's a pretty prominent and vocal investor and obviously a very wealthy man at this point. And I actually saw him give this presentation at Fordham once, and he talked about how he viewed prospective business partners. And he said he always watched how they treated the wait staff when they went out to dinner in a business setting. And you want to deal with people who treat people with respect and treat people with decency, regardless of their position, regardless of their role. Everybody deserves decent, common decency and respect. I mean, there's another more vernacular way we say it, as all of people in my peer group at this day and age. We all know a lot of different professionals. We worked in different roles. You come across people again and again in certain, circumstances where you might work with them again. We call it in the vernacular the no asshole rule, that at a certain stage in your life, you don't want to work with jerks anymore. And when you get old enough, you can kind of start to do that. But in general, I would say, really, you want to be sensitive to how, it's just being sensitive to people's circumstances and treating everybody with respect. And I think that's one of the best pieces of kind of advice I've heard in terms of how you observe how other people treat people. And that should determine who you really want to partner with and work with. So key takeaways, take advantage of the diverse course offerings that you guys can take advantage of in your last couple of years, either because you're interested and you want to do something that you're not going to be able to do when you get out in the real world, and also to try to develop those leadership skills that are going to be critical to success if that's what you want to do. You'll learn a lot of what you need to do on the job. I wouldn't get hung up on, kind of building as many practical skills at school. Try to learn these core competencies and how to, write and read and think and compute and all these, basic skills you can really bring to any job. Get your hands dirty. You guys are not millennials, but the millennials have a well-deserved reputation for not wanting to get their hands dirty. I see it day in and day out with certain people, and it's not an admirable or attractive trait. No work is beneath anybody when they start a job or a career, and best leaders in the world get their hands dirty. You look at someone like Jamie Dimon, who is obviously a phenomenally successful guy. I believe he gets his hands dirty every day of the week. He knows details in his business probably better than half of the managers in his company. So he's an example of that. I think no matter what level you're at, you always got to get your hands dirty, and you want to be able to understand the nuts and bolts of how things work, and that's how you do that, by getting your hands dirty. And then last but not least, again, take advantage of all the networking you can do. There's plenty of alums out there, or through family and friends, relative to when I went to school. I'm trying to think back, like when I was in business school, which is back in the late 80s, how at the time, I pulled lists of names from I don't even say it was a database. It was like some type of book at the University of Chicago. And I remember writing letters to people and then following up with a phone call to schedule an appointment to see them. So you guys have it so much easier because you can email people, set up appointments, you can get their contact info directly through the utilities you're using. So you really have no excuse not to do that. And if you do, you'll find jobs that you're going to be interested in, and you'll broaden your opportunity set, and you really can't start too soon. I've gotten to know a couple of current students who one guy in particular I tracked with, his 4 years. He graduates this year, and I've never seen anybody network as well as he has. But he had jobs throughout his entire 4 years. He's going to work at Goldman Sachs next year, if that's the brass ring still, for a full-time spot coming out of school. But he's like the poster child for networking, and it pays off. And I think you sell yourself short if you don't do it yourself. So that's all I have. You guys have any other questions or anything? I think we filled up the hour.
Yes, we're at that time. Yeah, does anyone have any other questions? You can feel free to unmic and ask, or you can raise your hand again if that's easier, or just type it to me if you just want me to ask it.
Or you just all want to get back to dinner, or whatever you were doing, or breakfast in China. Oh, okay.
Well, we'll hang on the call just a little bit longer. So if anyone has a specific question for Jamie, and maybe about his work experience, if that's something that relates to you and you want to ask a question, you could just hang around. Otherwise, I am going to send out information tomorrow with a follow-up to the workshop. You can provide feedback and then give you a little insight into next week. But thank you, Jamie, so much for taking the time and being flexible with our current situation and getting online for us.
No problem.
Yeah, so if anyone has any questions, you can just stay behind and we continue to ask them. Otherwise, you can leave the meeting if you'd like. Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.